Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO 44 coming at you with another video. All right, so Lakers. There's something that I did not mention in regards to Anthony Davis. He really played well in the last game offensively. I think he may have figured something out. In the midst of all of our struggles and all of our concerns, the one thing we can't say is that Anthony Davis struggled in any way, shape, or form in the last matchup, and he has throughout this series had a lot of trouble with those guys. If that last game was him indicating that he's figured out what they are throwing at him, figured out a way to score on it repeatedly, if what I saw there is that, I think that can go a long way in us winning tonight's basketball game. Because I can promise you LeBron James is not going to be as bad as he was in the last game. That's not going to happen. Like we can be 100% certain of that. Excuse me. And I just think the fact that this is the home crowd, it is Staples Center. The pressure is going to be high for both teams, but Memphis is a tough team, man, and that's why I ultimately picked them to win this particular matchup tonight. John Morant's going to come in and really try to attack us, but what I didn't take into account when picking them was how well Anthony did in the last game and how much I think that probably will translate to him playing well tonight. And when you take into account that he was taken off the floor and that score went as it did, I think coach will likely be inclined to play him very heavy minutes tonight, as he initially said in a roundabout way. He basically said he wanted to see guys kind of play more minutes. You know what I mean? They're going to have to try to do more. He's going to shorten the bench. So with the meeting that they said to have had over the last 24 hours, I don't know when it was actually had, but I think I said Thursday, and I heard it was this morning, so I'm not really sure. But nevertheless, maybe we see some changes in regards to Anthony Davis's minutes, maybe an increase even. So that could be something that'll probably get it done, but it's a risk to his health at all times to try to overdo it with AD. But in a situation like this, we just got to end this series, man. Honestly, we do not want to take another flight to Memphis for any reason. Obviously, not for Game 7, but just more so understanding that we have been the better team throughout. And although they are gaining momentum right now, at the end of the day, we do have the size advantage if we want to choose to use it. And that should translate to us patching up some of the holes that we ultimately saw left open when we subbed out Anthony Davis. So I don't know if what the solution would be, but I'd imagine keeping Anthony Davis on the floor a bit more is probably going to be the way to go. So that's what I think will happen there. And maybe we see more Rui Hachimura as well. I think that if coach is going to eliminate Beasley, Beasley's minutes and possibly Troy Brown's minutes, I'm curious to see who he's going to use in their stead, or if indeed he does shrink his bench, how that's going to affect rotations. Because D'Angelo Russell being used a certain way, you may not want to use him and Dennis Schroeder the same way. So you might want to have rotations be different with those guys on the floor in terms of what should be down there and allowed or what have you. The fact that we like to use multiple ball handlers, I don't think that's going to change. So what I'm wondering is if he's just going to do some different things with that front court. Maybe more Wenyen Gabriel possibly. I'm not going to even mention Bo Bamba because I know it's not likely we're going to see him. And I think that conversation's been had enough at this point. That's always an option there, of course. And then Tristan Thompson as well, we have as an option. So I think our coach, should explore some of our defensive options, man. At the end of the day, we're a very strong defensive team. We've seen what defense can do for what we are, which is a team that can turn defense into offense, man. Fast break points and things of that nature are really strong suit for us. Shaq Harrison's back there. That's somebody we can use. And I'd like to see what he can do on John Morant in small spurts. I understand he's a lockdown. So I know that we are heavy offense conscious, but if you're going to make some changes in this regard, I think it would help us a long way. So yeah, more defense, man. Please, more defense. Only because I think the roster is more so good at it. It's not necessarily because I think it's just the best way to attack in general. It's just when I look up and down the roster, I see defensive players. So when you go the multiple ball handler route, and then you use the power forwards that are on this team, you realize that those power forwards aren't built to be in that type of lineup. And Darvin has to understand that he has to use some of the guys that may botch some of his plans in order to protect the lineup. And so that's what I think is really happening there. And we've been seeing it all season long, but I think the reality is LeBron James has played so well that we've been able to get away with it. And in this series, his production hasn't been there. So now it leaves those holes that are often left open glaring. And this is why I didn't want us to do it. I didn't want us to go that route for this reason, as well as several others. But, LeBron James being worn down or, having slowed down because of the foot injury and father time is something we should understand. It's going to require us to kind of be a bit more rebounder-centric, a bit more defensive-minded, so to speak, to kind of protect him out there. And playing him at the center position may be more comfortable in certain sets, but to lean on in the way that we did against the personnel that they have, I think we all agree now that he's just taking on too much punishment, even if it is a successful thing. It's probably not what's best for us as a team to wear him down if we're to assume we're going to win this series. We're going to need him for the future ones. And I don't think you beat either one of those teams in that second round without a very good version of LeBron James. In fact, I don't think you win this game tonight if you don't get a very good version of LeBron James. So, he knows how to help his team in other ways. But the best version of the King for me is the one who doesn't turn the ball over. The three-point shots, it comes with understanding that he has to conserve energy and probably some other technical basketball stuff that I don't understand. So I try to I just charge it to the game. You know what I mean? At this point, I've already said my piece on his threes. I can live with his threes. I cannot live with the turnovers, the unforced ones. If a defender comes through and gets the ball, hey man, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna say? You know what I mean? That's just defense. But the ones that kick off his leg or, the travels, doing something wrong and then they whistle it and turn it, we gotta cut those out. You know what I mean? The travel calls and double dribble, not just Bron, but just the whole team. We need to be very careful not to have those type of turnovers. Also, here's a little nugget. The short corner inbound on the right side. I was watching, yesterday's game, Atlanta's game. Down the stretch, we all saw it. Atlanta had a very difficult time inbounding the ball with Trae Young from that particular corner. And as a result, they ended up turning the ball over in a very, very key moment. It became very clear to me that you have to have a play run for that type of inbound. If you're going to be in that situation, if you don't have a play run for that, you're likely going to have a hard time inbounding the ball. So, just a nugget. When I pick up things, you know what I mean? I see it. So, I would tell everybody just go check out the footage of that if you can't understand what it is that I referred to. I'm not a basketball mind, but I'm telling you, that short corner, right? You got to be able to have a play run, or else you can run the same thing Trae Young ran into last night. So, yeah, that's something I hope our Laker front office has already taken care of, or rather the coaching staff, of course, has already in the bag, as well as any other technical stuff like that that would otherwise be understood by guys like them. So, yeah, what else, man? There's something else that I wanted to share with you guys. Troy Brown is really going to help you defensively. You just got to use him right, man. I'd like to have Troy Brown on the floor with people who can score the ball and defend. See, I'm more of a two-way kind of guy, and I do look at him as a two-way guy. We just got to put him in positions to get to his spots, and he has to be willing to drive at the rim a bit more and look for putbacks more. See, that's what I would tell him. You got to target certain things. If you know you're the kind of guy that just doesn't really get involved in the offense very much. Maybe people don't run things for you. Maybe guys get away from you because you miss shots. You got to be the type of guy who's going to be looking to get offensive boards and put back dunks and stuff like that that's going to light the crowd up. That way, your teammates start looking at you like, okay, we can start looking at him to get some jump shots because we know he's going to light the crowd. Now, I'm not saying go outside of your body, but one of the things that Troy Brown loves to do in that way is he likes to do behind-the-back passes and stuff like that, flurry passes that are like, but he do them in a way that makes it so other people don't realize they're there. So what I see in Troy Brown is a guy where when he gets to his best self, he'll probably be more like a Nicholas Batum, when he fully blooms. You know what I mean? To where his defense will be more polished, his three-point shot will become a bit more consistent. And then at times he's going to be getting like 7 assists, 6 assists on a good night. You know what I mean? I can see him having like an 11, 7, and 11 game, that kind of thing later on. You know what I mean? That type of role player. And so it's still early for Troy. That's what we understand. Troy is much younger than he looks. I don't think Troy's like 24 yet. He might be 25 or something like that. So we just got to be very patient with Troy and not try to ask him to do too much. But phasing him out of the lineup entirely as a defensive wing, it may be something that we might not want to do because we don't really have too many defensive wings. And I'm telling you, bless it if we get out of this lineup, this series rather. Hopefully we do. You're going up against Golden State, and if you don't have a guy like Troy Brown on the floor, when they start messing around with having Wiggins and GP2, Clay, you're going to need those guys on the floor. Jordan Poole, you're going to need Troy on the floor. You're going to need him on the floor. And that's what I know. So it's like phasing Troy out and just skipping him along the way just because he hasn't necessarily worked in some of these lineups, that's not the answer. Troy is the same way as everybody else on our team. No different than Vando. You just got to use him properly and accept what his weaknesses are. And don't overuse him. You know what I mean? That's what it is with Troy. So this is why I say use everybody, because I can totally see lineups where Troy Brown will be just fine. You only deploy those lineups for maybe 2-3 plays, and then you go into different lineups. A guy like Troy, he does need to get in rhythm, and I don't think our system allows him to get in rhythm. I think Troy would be great in a system that targets him to be in certain spots where he's going to get the ball in rhythm in those plays at all times. You run those plays enough times, his three-point shot is pretty when it's going, but it has to go in rhythm and it has to be in comfortable spots for him. So I think we can get more out of him defensively. He's one of those guys that I think now that he's played in our team and gotten some real minutes, not had no injuries at all. That's another thing I like about Troy. He's been fairly healthy. That's something to be noteworthy about. But the one thing that I think can really help him is if he just gets into a system where more of the offensive load will be required on him to within a system that has a bunch of scorers around it, so it's not glaring that he doesn't score, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? That way, if he walks away with a 9-point game, the lineup is still scored in 1/4. Because what we end up doing is putting them in lineups that can't score. You put them on the floor with Vando and Beasley. I don't know how the heck that's going to work. You know what I mean? They're not going to get too much going based on what we've seen. And so, you only want one of them on the floor at a time, and then you want other things that complement them, and then you want them to be able to get to their spots and rhythm. That's how you get the most out of all these guys. Beasley, same thing. We got to be very careful not to push him out of the lineup and push him all the way out in ways that don't allow us to have the three-point shooting that makes us a decent three-point shooting team. We must understand, Rui is helping us with that. D'Lo obviously helps us with that. But we really do have limited three-point shooters. Obviously, Austin Reeves is a fantastic shooter. But it becomes a situation where you see yourself limited. And you saw that in the last game when we went 10 for 39. What was it? I think it was 10 for 39. There are going to be nights where we're not going to really be as good the three-point shooting team as we should be if we can't get him to be a viable three-point shooter in some certain rotations that we want to go to throughout these playoffs. There are going to be moments where you're just going to want him to hit shots. And I know that sounds crazy coming out of me, but it's all situational. You got to know what players to put around certain guys so you can get the most out of them. I can totally see certain lineups that Malik Beasley can be successful in. We just got to make sure we have rim protection on the floor with him. He should not be in these spread lineups. I know and this is going to sound crazy, but I know it's tempting to put him in those lineups. But the problem with putting him in those lineups is that he is left to be shown exposed for all of his weaknesses in those lineups. But if you put him in lineups where he's literally the only offensive player and the only shooter, and everybody else is doing different stuff, especially covering his backside defensively and on the boards, then he's a problem. Then he's hitting threes left and right. Then he's the guy who, if you have to guard everybody else, he's left open and hits the shot confidently, because he didn't have the shots that he's taken over the last several games that bricked turn into transition buckets, as to which the whole team is looking at him like he's crazy for missing shots in lineups that he's really not conditioned to be in the first place. And so this is what I see. That's my vision for him. He's not a hard player to use. You just got to slot him in the right place. I would love to have him in a situation where it's only like a couple shooters on the team. You give me him, Grady out of Kansas, you know what I'm saying? And just put them in a situation like what Miami has over there. Like the Tyler Hero, that whole dynamic that they have with their shooters. That's the type of situation I could see him being in, like a Gabe Vincent type. Because he really does have some good intangibles. You just can't put him in small ball lineups, and you certainly can't put him in small ball spread offense lineups. Your defense is just left completely abysmal in this particular way with these particular players. I guess this is what I can see. So, your D-Lows and Austin, and just putting them down there with Schroeder, it just doesn't, it don't translate, man. It looks bad, and it goes left fast. And so as I've been talking like this in this camera for so long, I wanted people to be clear on what my vision was for Malik Beasley as a player and how I think he could be complementary to certain lineups. You just got to know which ones to put him in. Troy, same thing. And I think that's really the case with every player. And that's why a guy like Kevin Durant is so valued, because you can slot them into more lineups and don't have to cover as much because of what so many different things they bring to the table. So I assess that, and I think about the Los Angeles Lakers and what they can do in this upcoming draft. There's some really nice talent we've got to talk about. So I'm gonna get together with you guys and talk about what it is I'm learning. I've been paying attention to some mock drafts and getting a good look at each and every one of these dudes within our range. And there's some dudes, Ryan Rubert, I don't know if he's very good, but he has length. He could help in that situation. Bryce Sensabaugh is a 3-level scorer, not really defensive, but definitely somebody who's going to get buckets. And, I don't want to get locked into anything, to be honest with you, as it pertains to this draft. Because when you start thinking about pieces that you want to use, you really can't just think, okay, well, I got Vando, I got this guy, so I don't need that. Or because I need more shooters, let me get that. Not necessarily. You want to let the scouts just really do what it is that they do and bring us the very best possible talent. Because if we start bringing players to us because of fit, or start kind of zeroing in on different things that don't necessarily have to do with the best possible talent, I don't think our franchise can afford to leave that type of value on the table this year. Now, that doesn't mean go after the big name or whatever. I'm not saying that. Let the scouts do the study, and I trust the scouts is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying? We got some of the best in the league. So I'm very excited about what they can do with the 17th pick, especially now that I'm learning what type of players are there. As I've talked about Hawkins for a while, it's some other dudes too, man. But you know what? Like I said, I would love for us to trade a little higher, because there's some really nice players in the 10, 11, 12 range that I think would fit what we got going on very well. But nevertheless, the Lakers will definitely be good at 17 for sure. And the way certain things can shake up, as we're seeing in the NFL draft, guys can slip and be picked in different ways, and different trades can make a lot of different things happen. So depending on how the Lakers finish this series here, may determine how aggressive they think they should be in the offseason. Hopefully we end our season on a very high note, because we know our roster could get some things done, but we also see the need for some front court help. Maybe somebody that Coach would want to play, somebody who might want to bring to the situation to kind of complement the team that we already have. That might be an option for our roster. So, franchise rather. So, thinking about different things, trying to be as broad as I can possibly be as it pertains to what I would be welcoming in regards to that draft, because I'm torn as a fan. Do I want to build for the future as it pertains to this particular pick? Because I don't know if I'm going to get one between now and the next year. Of course, as we know, the swap takes place, to which either New Orleans can either take this upcoming draft pick or the one the following year, and that would complete the Anthony Davis trade. So as I'm thinking about this pick, I consider it a very important pick, which is why I want to kind of couple it with an asset that we don't use and maybe get closer into the lottery if at all possible. Because we may not get one for another 2 years. So we can strike it rich with this one. But there are a lot of different ways to do this. You can, and some people think trading down makes a lot of sense in turning one pick into like 7 or something like that in this market. That might be the way to go low key, just for the flexibility reasons. Now, I'm not sure how you would value something like that, if that makes any sense at all, but I'm just thinking outside the box. When you consider Jay Crowder went for 5 picks, 5 second rounders, what would 17th pick go for? Like 12 second round picks? I don't know. But when I look at second round picks, I think about what our scouts can do with them. And I'm like, we can fill up our whole team and trade that for a superstar if we get it right. That kind of thing, man. That's how you strike it rich, when you think outside the box completely. And so, I don't know if that would make any sense based on how things have changed in the collective bargaining, agreement and all that. I don't know. So, but nevertheless, I do want our franchise to be kind of aggressive as it pertains to the young assets that we can use in the picks and stuff like that. I want us to not be settled in the fact that we don't have a first round pick next year. I want us to try to get one anyway. That kind of thing, because at the end of the day, we do have an older core, and that means that we have to kind of be thinking like that at all times. And so, given we are going to see that my theory about depth is a real thing, as you're starting to see certain teams. Atlanta, I told you guys, Atlanta was a team that I thought had more talent overall than Boston. They're still alive for some reason. That ended up happening. I think, didn't Atlanta get knocked off yesterday? In 6, I think they get knocked off. But they extended that series much longer than most people thought. And then you consider the New York theory. I told you guys New York was better than Cleveland because of the depth. I'm seeing that. Bucks are gone. You're seeing that. I mean, it's just one of those situations where it's like, depth is a real thing, you guys. We're going to see what happens with Golden State tonight, obviously, and the Kings. But the Kings and the Golden State both have plenty of depth, so I'm not really sure that they don't cancel each other out in that way in the end, especially with Wiggins being back. It just changes their whole dynamic now. And so, I picked the Golden State Warriors to win the series, and I don't know. They're back home tonight, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they are. It's game 6 back in their crib, so just like ours. So I don't know, man. I don't see the series headed back to Sacramento, unfortunately. For Sacto, I really don't see it. It's just one of those situations where you run into Steph Curry, man. He's a demoralizing player to go up against. He's won so much. He can break a game open with his talent. And at the end of the day, if you're going to go up against him, you have to have the type of guys that can chase him around for hours on end. It's almost like, Rip Hamilton back in the day, for those who remember him from the Pistons, who used to wear the mask. You just got to be in a certain type of condition to chase him around all night long. You can't send the same person at him over and over again, because he's going to learn that person and proceed to overcome him with his endurance. Same as Reggie Miller. Those guys were just they were constantly moving, and they were intelligent, so it made it impossible. And Steph Curry is like, he's better than them. So it's like, Jesus Christ, what are you going to do with this dude? And so, now that I've really come to understand just how difficult it is to bet against this guy over the years, after watching him just destroy every team in front of him, except for certain teams that LeBron had going on. I mean, it just becomes a situation where you just know that the Kings are up against it. Even if they have a lead, even if they got a better team, at the end of the day, this dude is going to hit shots, man. Back-breaking shots. There ain't going to be nothing you can do about it. And then his teammate Clay is going to do the same thing. And it doesn't matter if it's the last second or the first second, they're hitting the shot just the same. They're ice cold. And so that's just what it really comes down to. That's why I said they were going to win the series despite not really seeing no way for them to do so. Because at the end of the day, them two are going to overcome anything with their shooting, their efficiency, and just ultimately how difficult it is to keep up with them. So, yeah. Can the Kings win tonight? They can. But you can't lose the game they lost at home. No, and the way that Malik Monk has kind of disappeared over the last couple of games, if he doesn't snap out of that funk on the road, I don't see how they're going to be able to do it. I don't see it for the Kings, man. I think this thing is over in 6. But, you never can tell. But the Fox injury to the finger, that probably just did him in. You know what I mean? I really think that. Because they were already dealing with injuries in other areas as well. So, the old Kings, they had a great season, though. If this thing does end here, they have so much to be pleased with, and the future is bright. Guys are going to continue to get better. It's not like that team is going anywhere. Keegan Murray, this was his rookie season, So they got to figure out who they want to keep, and if, certain contractual situations can change some things or what have you. But if they keep what they got going on pretty much intact, I think they'll be right back here next year, even better. So, hey, it's not over yet. I'm not writing them off, but I just understand what type of rhythm Steph Curry's in. Draymond Green is in rare form right now as well, from what I understand. Clay is healthier than he's been in years. They're home. I mean, at that point, it's just like, what are you gonna do, man? It's just too much. It's too much. So yeah, I think that is tonight. But the Lakers, we have work to do. We are gonna have to fight tooth and nail, like I told us, maybe around Game 3. It's gonna take more than the effort that you're willing to give to win this game. Tonight is absolutely no different. They're going to be coming at you much faster and harder than they ever have. They're not tired. They're young. And so we just got to bring youthful legs out there, man. That's why I don't think we should really be afraid of certain things. But the problem is, and when I say certain things, I mean rotation changes. But the problem is, if we're going to make certain changes, do I trust the changes we're making? You see what I'm saying? It's like, okay, you're telling Darvin to do something different. What's Darvin coming up with now? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I hope it works out for us, man. I really do. I hope it works out. But I just haven't seen a whole lot to make me feel really confident there. And I feel like a lot of smoke has been blown at us in regards to why we're seeing certain things and stuff like that. It's just like, come on, man. Let's sharpen up. At some point in time, you got to listen to what people are saying and then make the changes necessary. So that's what I'm hopeful to see from the rookie coach, man. Don't let people just sit there and hound you about stuff that you see, you know what I mean? Because over the years, I'll tell you, I've seen so many stubborn coaches, man. However it is actually going on behind the scenes, I've seen so many guys who just appear to be married to what it is that they do, and they will let themselves get fired doing something that does not work. It's not the first time we've seen this in Lakerland. I'm thinking about a guy like Mike D'Antoni. He just refused to adjust his system to fit a roster that I think if he would have utilized it properly, probably would have brought him some wins. I don't know if we could have won the chip that year or nothing, but we were a lot better than he would have allowed us to be, just because he wanted us to run with old guys who couldn't really even dribble like that. He wanted Dwight Howard to run. Like, listen, man, at some point in time, you just got to look at your roster and say, it has its own strengths. Maybe not the ones I wanted to have, but let me just try some stuff that I don't necessarily want to do. Let me throw a box, offense out there, man. I don't know, whatever works. Instead of this intricate system that is attached to my brand and my name, so that my name can have wins attached to it based on my ability to adjust to the roster at hand. I don't know why coaches don't see the fruit in that. It's like, yo, we respect that you have to get away from your system. It shows that you have some maneuverability. It shows that if you have to, you can. But if you cannot, if you have to, then that's definitely a detriment to you. as a coach. Nobody's gonna look at him and say, "Look at him. He stuck to that system. That system failed him." And it's like, I don't know why a lot of coaches think that's a real good thing. It's really not. Your owner wants to win above all else. So if something that you're doing doesn't work, but you've promised them that it would, you audibling out of it into something that works will please them. I promise you it will. And I've seen so many coaches be backwards in their thinking, and so many coaching staffs be backwards in their thinking. And I always wonder, why do they go down with the ship? I'd rather try something that looks like it could work based on the strengths that I have, and it not work. And then people are going to say, well, what went wrong? Well, I know the strength of the team doesn't necessarily fit what I have, and I'm not really good at that. So I fall on the sword in regards to what it is we've done here. But at the end of the day, if we run my system, it's just simply not built for the team that we have. So I had to try to implement something new. And then live with the results. And people are going to be like, well, that makes sense. And if he would have been able to have his own players, he would have been able to run the system that worked for him. And we would have seen it do well, as to which nobody would look at your system fail and say your system doesn't work. See what I'm saying? Nobody's even going to question your system. If anything, they're going to say your system would have been what saved them, and the dang team should have got you your players. That's all they're going to say. But if you show your system out there with the wrong players, believe me, the system itself looks like a failure. So that's just how I see it, man. I don't know. I want people to succeed, especially if they're doing it for my team. And I think Darvin's going down a path that I've seen too many coaches go down that just has that inverted thinking to me. You know, and I don't know if it's like keeping a promise, or is it in the contract that you must use this? I don't know. But if you're not married to it in that way, then you got to do something that works. And even if it is in the contract, you got to look at the owner and say, yo, this stuff don't work, yo. So if you want to win, I don't know. You know, it's got to be something of that nature, so people don't look at you and say you're an idiot. You know, because it's going to fail anyway. That's what it really comes down to. You know, but everybody, when it looks like they can't be seen as having made a mistake. But in a game that changes every day, it should be understood that mistakes are going to be made, not because you're incompetent, but because you got to keep up with how quickly things change. It's a science that changes based on how players start to come about. If a new guy comes about, like, again, we bring up Kenny Lofton since he plays for the Memphis Grizzlies. He starts coming about scoring 40 points. Now you got to structure what it is that you're doing to defeat him every time you see his team, and certain things are going to be moved around so that you can defeat him. As to which you're going to change everything you're doing. So it's like if somebody's slow to the party because they're not paying attention to that for whatever good reason or not, they're going to look like they have absolutely no idea what the hell they're doing. And that may not necessarily be the case. And so it should be a little bit more understood that mistakes can be made within the course of sports, so that people don't have such high expectations that can never be met based on how they're doing things. And we know the game of basketball is a strategic sport that has to be reacted to in real time. So why would we be married to anything prior to, as it pertains to what we're going to do on the floor? Why would we think that that's going to translate properly if what you're looking at has to be adjusted to in real time? Well, I'm going to put this guy in these minutes. Does that really add up to what it is that's going to actually help you if you got to be on top of something every second? If you got to become on top of something that's flowing in nature? I don't even know how one can convince themselves that they can be on top of such things. You know, not actually. Not without betraying what it is that you're supposed to be in charge of, which is a flowing, ever adapting entity that's within the time limit from which it's being played. So for me, it's like, I don't know, man. I think the men's mentality just betrays the sport itself, as we've talked about several times. You know, and I think if you get away from it, I think you make a lot of people happy, and maybe even attach some winning to your name. So I think a lot of teams are starting to, and we may see some of those teams succeed. Just like I said, the depth. Yeah, some of those teams that are starting to just leave guys out there and let them play, or put the second unit down there, and if they're playing better, just leave them out there. Those are the teams that are going to be probably doing well, man. Because you just got to let things be as they are. If a guy's hot, leave him out there. If a guy's not, get him out of here, you know? And if you're married to the minute, you're going to betray that, and he's going to drag you down. So we see it all the time. I don't know why teams do this, but they should stop. They should definitely stop. So that is my spiel for the day. I hope people like my little NBA talks, man. It certainly helped me get through the day. And yeah, time to listen to this one. My name is BDO44. I thank you all for watching.